we're gonna move into the next segment. We're gonna talk about some book bans that are happening across the country.
Woohoo.
So yeah, this is something that's going on in my neck of the woods too. This has been a pretty fervent push from a very small and vocal group of people that are out there really trying to um, take away access to information. And one of the things that I really thought was interesting was pretty much right at the beginning. There's a quote by a Pulitzer Prize winning author, and basically what this quote is how banning books doesn't really fit neatly into these rubrics of like left and right. Kind of in general, when we think of politics, a lot of times in the US, it's a pretty binary system. And it seems to be the case that there are people on a lot of different sides with a lot of different angles trying to prevent kids from accessing these books. Now, some of them, it's like, okay, maybe we shouldn't be giving that one to a child. Maybe we shouldn't give it to a 5-year-old. But at the same time, I'm just so baffled as to why we think the appropriate thing to do is to prevent this information for children. So I definitely want to get your guys' thoughts on this, because I mean, again, like I said, this is something that's happening in my state, in my county, that we are dealing with. And a lot of these books that they're wanting to ban, you know, I'm just so confused as to why they want to ban them. Because there doesn't seem like there's anything that would be inappropriate for any age child, really. But Scott, what do you think on this? Is banning books a good decision? Am I just off base or what?
No, I think we should ban all books. No, I'm kidding. Actually,
Everybody go
I
to
want
Kindle.
right, exactly right, ebooks. No, I want to quote a famous book that has often finds itself on one of these banned book lists, and so this particular book says. A towel is just about the most massively useful thing an interstellar hitchhiker can carry. You can wrap it around your head to ward off noxious fumes or avoid the gaze of the ravenous bug bladder beast of Traal. A mind-bogglingly stupid animal. It assumes that if you can't see it, it can't see you. Daft as a brush, but very ravenous. And of course, that was from The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy by fellow atheist Douglas Adams, or the late Douglas Adams, I should say.
Yes.
So in other words, what he's saying here is that if you can't see it, it can't hurt you. And that's kind of the whole idea behind this book banning thing. We just won't let the kids see that, and they won't, and then it won't affect them. But the problem is, and this is what the article was really pointing out, is that goes against the way that children, the way that their minds develop, the way that they develop their worldviews, the way that they develop their beliefs. In fact, we've already seen how this approach fails. We've seen it in the area of sex ed, right? There are some areas of this country that are pushing abstinence only sex education. If they don't hear it, they won't do it. And I think, I think we all know how that one turned out, right? It didn't. The problem isn't that abstinence doesn't work. Abstinence will work. The problem is that abstinence only education doesn't lead to abstinence. And so it's nature will find a way. What was that? Jeff Goldblum on Jurassic Park, right? Nature will find a way. Neil, what do you think? Neil, what's up?
Well, first of all, you said if they don't hear it, then they don't do it or something like that. I remember hearing my parents going at it when I was a kid, and mom going and screaming about the old God stuff, and I just thought, maybe they're just praying or something. I'm not too sure.
So how do you feel about banning books, Neil?
So anyway, I think if you tell someone they can't do something, they're going to want to do it even more. But banning books, they talk in the article a little bit about like To Kill a Mockingbird and stuff like that, and that these are classics that weren't canceled and whatnot, at least not that I'm aware of. And I know there's some people that want them to be banned. However, because they have racist content in them and they horrible portrayals of people of color and whatnot like that. So do we ban those as well? I mean, should we ban stuff like that? It teaches people how not to be, that's for sure. And it shows that the evolution of our society over time, although albeit some people are still back in the To Kill a Mockingbird time period, it seems these days anyways, because there's a lot of racism floating around. But yeah, I think books definitely written over history definitely reflect the time periods that they are from. But does that necessarily mean we have to ban them? And now we've got, in modern times, we've got books that have stuff about LGBTQ plus community and stuff like that. And I don't think any of these books should ever be banned, because they're there as teaching tools and teaching people about things like that, about racism, about the LGBTQIA plus community. It helps people understand. And when you have understanding, then we have better camaraderie. Now we understand more about each other, and we understand what's the bad and we understand what's the good, like what's harmful and what isn't. And I think we need to keep these books around so we can learn from our past mistakes and improve as a species, evolve to be much better.
Learning, is that what you're talking about? Learning, we should knowledge.
Did
What
you have
is
the
this? What is
Schoolhouse
this thing?
Rock commercials back in the day? Conjunction.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. Well, what are
Gotta
your
learn, man.
thoughts on this, Kelley?
All right.
I was thinking when you said people will do what they're told not to do, that great successful DARE program that we did for years in the United States that caused everybody to start doing drugs. Yeah, right. It's a perfect example of that concept.
Yeah.
But
Hold on, I just got to roll one up real quick.
I'm amazed that people think that because you read because you read something, you're going to turn into that thing. Like I was required to read Huck Finn when I was in high school, and it's full of racist language. And you know what? I didn't turn into a racist. So I mean, I was able to read that and not become the thing that they banned that book for, which I agree with Neil. I mean, it has historic importance, and I think it's good to reflect back on the bad things in our society and what we did so that we don't repeat them again. So we shouldn't ban books like that. And I wondered if it's because these people think, a lot of these people, they read parts of the Bible and they became Christians. And is that why they think this? If somebody reads this book about LGBT children, the LGBT teenagers, they're going to turn into one. Just like I turned into a Christian from reading the Bible. I mean, it's just such a ridiculous, logical sequence to make. I just don't get it. It's mind-boggling to me. And there's also the idea that right. And then there's the idea that a 10 to 16-year-old kid doesn't have the ability to think for themselves. I mean, my kids could at that age, because they were taught to think for themselves. So maybe if they took the time that they were spending trying to get these books banned and raising their children better, they wouldn't have to worry about banning these books.
Yeah, that's an interesting thought indeed. And I again, this is something that's happening in my state of Tennessee, and in some instances, I think, okay, this, again, as I said earlier, like maybe this isn't something that's age appropriate. Maybe we shouldn't be advocating that little 5-year-olds watch Saving Private Ryan or something kind of in that vein. Maybe that's a bit much, I get that, right? But most of the time, what I am seeing when these books are being banned, they are things like a book that just very casually mentions that the main character has 2 dads. And that's really all it says. It just says, little Jimmy goes home one day and he sees his dad and he says, "Hey, Dad." And then he sees his other dad and he says, "Hey, Dad." And then they all hug and they eat dinner and and this one blows my mind, but they got the biography of Ruby Bridges banned from a couple of schools. The sweet, calm little 6-year-old black girl who helped integrate schools, was the first black child in America to go to an all-white school like that. A really great moment in history where we're like, holy crap, we finally took a step forward. I for some reason, and I'm not sure why, but for some reason they don't like that story. And it could be anything. I have no idea what it is. But what about some people, Scott, who say that there are some books out there that teach very hateful, bigoted, divisive kind of ideologies. Should we ban those too, or are you saying, hey, look, hands off the books, guys? All of them should be allowed.
Well, it's tough to say. I mean, you could make an argument that children shouldn't necessarily be exposed to everything. However, like we've been saying, kids don't, it doesn't work that way. It's not like they see and then they're all of a sudden like that. For example, my own kids, my wife and I decided early on that we didn't care if they swore. We said, fuck it up, right? You go for it, right? Say whatever you want. And this might just be an exceptional. Obviously, doesn't necessarily mean everybody's going to be like this. But now my kids are like the kindest, most polite people that I've ever seen, and they hardly ever swear. And even though, when they do, we know that they mean, we know that it's for impact. But the point is, though, that just mere exposure is not going to make you that way. And if we compare it, for example, say to like these chickenpox parties, right? That's when the parents, when one of their kids gets infected with chickenpox, and they invite the whole neighborhood over. They say, "Come on in," and so on one hand, we have these book banners saying, no, we can't let our kids be around these dangerous things, otherwise it will affect them negatively. And then on the other hand, we have very often the same people saying, well, wait, we have to toughen our kids up. We need to expose them to these dangerous things. And so, I mean, come on, make up your mind. I mean, this is pure speculation on my part, but if I were a betting man, I would say that there's quite a bit of overlap between the chickenpox party people and the book banning people. I'm just saying, pick a lane, people, pick a lane, one way or the other. Stick with one madness. Okay. Don't quit jumping horses mid-ship here, or whatever that. I was mixing my metaphors there.
Well, it is a striking analogy when you put those two kind of next to each other. Neil, any final thoughts on banning books? Or
I mean, if people are really that concerned, you could just have libraries introduce, and I'm pretty sure they do this already, but I mean, books are categorized. They're in sections, and there's some that are in the adult section, and these kids shouldn't, if they're not quite ready for some of that theme, then don't allow them to take out those books, or they might, they can if they get parental permission or something like that, send them in with a note saying you can give my kid, something that's a little bit more to the risque side, because they're at that age where they're starting to understand that stuff. But I mean, just, I don't know, split it up into maturity levels, I guess. But then, and I think of myself being a giant kid anyways, but yeah, I mean, it's I don't know if we should. Well, I mean, obviously there's going to be some books that shouldn't be allowed out there, but because they're just, all they are is promoting harmful behavior and harmful treatment of others and stuff like that. And we can keep those ones on the back shelf, and you better have a good reason to want to look at that. But yeah, other than that, books shouldn't be banned, in my opinion, at all. Because how do you learn?
Kelley, any final? Yeah, exactly. Kelley, any final thoughts?
Yeah, sure, I sure do. In some way, it's kind of a honor to have your book banned. It puts you in the same ranks as Mark Twain, Harriet Beecher Stowe, William Shakespeare, Margaret Sanger, Ernest Hemingway, J.D. Salinger. This is an awesome list to be on. I would not mind being on a list with those people. But this, and just like going back to our first story, it's the same. A lot of these are these same group of people, and they're just hurt and trying to create an alternative false reality because they think that the real reality is out to get them and it's threatening their existence. So they're just creating a new one. And one of the biggest organizations behind these book bannings is Moms for Liberty. And I don't remember anywhere in the idea of liberty that censorship came in. So yeah, I think we we need to stand up to these people. We got to stop this shit. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's all I've got to say.
Before we move on to these final couple of articles, I found this quote, and I just thought it was really beautiful, and I think it's a great way to end this section. The regulation of children's access to important knowledge has undermined their development as competent, well-informed, critical thinking, and ethical young citizens. And I absolutely agree with Carrie Robinson there. I think restricting information for the next generation is always going to lead to bad outcomes. So again, as with kind of the first news, hopefully in the future we'll be able to bring some more positive updates on this and talk about, you know, a lot of these getting rolled back. But for the time being, this is definitely something I think all of us here would agree is important to be paying attention to, because it does not lead to a better world for us. So